Hi, this is Lauren from LSP Actions, and I'm going to show you how to use the new LSP texture overlays. These can be used in any Photoshop, including elements. They're not just limited to Photoshop Creative Cloud like a lot of my actions are. They can be used on any Photoshop. So to get started, you will download the actions. Sorry, I'm so used to saying that. The overlays. These will be a zip file because they're quite big. The overlays, so you'll need to unzip them and save them somewhere on your computer where they're easily accessible. You will also have a mini action, so save that to your computer, and then you can open the action here in Photoshop. It's called the LSP texture action. Really simple. And the main thing you're going to be using here is this one here, LSP texture action. The others are just kind of bonus add-ons, which I will show you. So to get started, come up here and select the LSP texture action. You'll get a little message saying this will open up your folders. Locate the LSP texture folder and choose the texture. And then you do the following: place, which will put the texture into your image, resize it to fit, and then you hit enter. Really simple. So you find the texture that you'd like to pop over your image. There are 10 textures. Each texture, although when these go to shop there may be a few more, but there are 10 main textures, and you find the texture you want. Each texture has got a desaturated version. For outdoor images and heavier textures, I would recommend using the coloured version. For studio, I'd recommend using the desaturated version, but you can try both. So you choose the texture and you pop it in and resize it here just by dragging, all one-handed, and then you hit enter. This will then play out the texture action, which will set the texture up on your image. So that's before and after. This texture is Felicity. So you can try another texture if you wanted to, or if you're happy with the texture you've put in, you can simply come up here to the Paint Off Faces etc. box, which should be selected anyway once the action has played. Get a white brush, make sure you're on the layer mask, either a low opacity or a low flow, either. And you paint this on just to paint the texture off of your subject's face whilst keeping the colour tones. Or you can come here onto the texture box, select a black brush and just paint the texture directly off, but this will of course show your original image through, and depending on the style of your image you may prefer to keep the the tones of the texture in there. So that's before and after. For a studio image I've gone for a black and white. You go back up here to the actions, grab the texture. I would choose a black and white one, but you can always choose a colour and desaturate it if you want to. So which one shall we go for? Let's go for Gossamer. And then resize it and pop it in until you're happy. So let's say about there, the action will play out. You can also layer up the textures if you wanted to. I'm just going to paint this directly off his face, so I'm going to select a black brush and paint directly off on here on the texture mask. This one is a very light texture, as you can see. If you wanted a heavy texture or you wanted to layer another texture in, you can simply go back to the texture action, choose another one and place it in again, and it will do the exact same thing. So you can build them up, change the opacity. They're really very flexible with what you want to do with them. So, and again I'm going to paint this off his face just so we can get that smooth skin showing through, because I don't know if you can see, but if I zoom right in you can see the texture is here on his arm, so I'm just going to paint that off with a low opacity brush. Okay, so that's before and after. And again, texture action, choose your texture, resize, and paint it off the face. Of course you can leave it on the skin if you wanted to, but personally I like to paint off. So that's before and after. You can see a very painterly feel on this one. You can also change the opacity of the texture layer to suit your image just by sliding the opacity up here. You can turn it on and off to see. And again you can paint it directly off the subject's skin if you wanted to, whichever way you wanted to do it. Okay, so this is a studio. I'm going to go for a desaturated texture for this one. And resize, and then just paint it off their faces directly, off the skin. The reason I like using a low flow brush rather than low opacity is because I can just keep my hand on it and build it up as we kind of go, which personally to me works a lot better, but you could use 100% flow and a low opacity. It's kind of whatever suits you best in your image. You can zoom in to make sure you get this as perfect as possible. See, I'm just doing this quite quickly as a demo to show you. I do recommend turning it on and off so you can see where it is and where it isn't. And again, you can change the opacity if you wanted to. Okay, and one more. So I'm going to choose a coloured texture overlay for this one. Let's go first one. Okay. The action will play out, and I'm just going to paint it off her skin. So that gives a very nice kind of sun kind of effect there. So that's before and after. There are a few other actions here, little bonus ones. You can decrease the yellows if you wanted to, by either playing that several times or just sliding the opacity up. Because sometimes textures, especially coloured textures, they're on a soft light setting, which can bring out the yellows and the warms in your image. You can also desaturate the texture. You'll get a little stop message come up saying select the texture layer and then hit play. So I'm going to select the texture layer and play it. And it just desaturates that texture down, so you just have the texture with no colour tone changing. Personally, I like it as it was. So that's the new LSP textures and how to apply them to your images to give that fine art feel. You can go in as heavy or as light as you want to. You can layer them up. You can change them by using the small bonus actions there. And they are available at www.lsp-actions.com.